All right, got this thing out of the box and out of the plastic. I don't know if I should be concerned about this or not, but you can see this red stuff in this bag. This appears to be, I don't know, the oil, the fluid that's inside this thing. It was all sticky with the red stuff here, so I just wiped it all off. So does that mean it's leaking right here? I don't know. Really hope not. If so, I guess I'll send this video to Fox and ask for a new one. Anyways, I got this compressed. You're supposed to leave a 1/4 inch between this end of the shaft and the body of the shock. So I'm gonna measure this, make sure it's a 1/4 inch, but it's supposed to be a 1/4 inch there when installing this with your passenger front wheel turned all the way out to the passenger side. And then this end of the shaft installs on that end of your steering, and then this end will install, on this end or in the middle of your tie rod. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. I'm thinking, let me put this guy right here. So this end has, let me get it facing the right way. It has the adjuster screw where you can turn that thing counterclockwise or clockwise to make it looser or tighter, respectively. I think I'm gonna have to have that pointing down, because if you see the direction of the bore on this opening here, I want to put a bolt through that hole right there and then just bolt this to it with a little spacer. And so I think what that's going to mean is this is going to have to be rotated down like that. Okay. Man, it'd be nice to have someone else holding this camera. Okay. So I think I'm just going to bolt it up to that middle hole right there, just like that, which means my adjuster screw is going to be on the bottom. And then I got to flip this this bracket upside down so that the mounting surface here is pointing down, and make myself a little bracket on this tie rod. So I'm going to try and turn this thing over and see if that, it's got a screw right there that makes me think that you can loosen it, spin it, tighten it back up. But if that's the case, then this end's going to be quite easy. I'm just going to go to the hardware store, pick up a spacer and a bolt and a nut, and that'll be done. Then over here, it came with a mount that obviously won't work with my Jeep, but I can use it to template another mount. Set that camera down for a second. So this section of the mount, I can just cut and weld. So I can cut out that rectangle right there that's reflecting light, that white part. I can cut that out. It's what bolts onto here. And I can just weld my own stuff to it instead of these that are custom made for, I think this is for a Jeep Gladiator or something, but I can cut this tab off, cut this off, so I'm just left with the center rectangle, weld my own stuff on, go from there. So that's the plan. We'll see how that works. All right, now we got our Fox label upright, our bracket pointing down towards the tie rod. This guy's rotated how we want it. We're at a 1/4 inch spacing. I think we're ready to start figuring out this guy's mount. But first, actually, okay, change of mind. I think I'm gonna go to the hardware store and get my bolt and nut to hold this on. That way I can have it held on one side, maybe propped up by a jack stand or something on this end, so I can have an easier time marking and measuring. So I'll go ahead and go to the hardware store and get this stuff right now. I forgot to mention, it came with these 2 bolts to hold this bracket onto this mounting surface, so I can reuse those bolts. Like I said, cut out this section, so I shouldn't need additional hardware since I'm going to be welding my own tabs to that section and then weld those to the tie rod. I shouldn't need any more hardware, so that's it. Okay, just got back from the hardware store. Got a 1/2 inch 13 bolt, 5 inches long, flange, grade 8. That costs $4.89. Does that sound expensive to you guys? Let me know in the comments if you guys get them cheaper where you're at. 3 yellow zinc grade 8 washers, 1/2 inch, and a nylock grade 8 1/2 inch 13 nut. If you're wondering why this is so long, I'm gonna go all the way through this bracket to the other side. So it'll come in here, come out on the back side, and I'm gonna make a spacer out of this. I've got some leftover bushings. These, what do you call these? I don't know what you call this. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna cut it down to size and make a spacer. Okay, I cut the small piece off of the larger piece to make my spacer. So I think I'm ready to do this. Just gonna go in, not there, in here. You might wonder why not in there, and I could do that, but with the twist, I don't want it hitting the inside and outside because I'm gonna have this guy mount to the tie rod, and I don't want to make a long mount for the tie rod, so I'm just gonna put this here and make it easier to mount to the tie rod with a smaller mount. Okay, I'm gonna put my phone down. Okay, I didn't tighten this hardly at all. I just basically went up until I started to hit nylon on this nylon lock nut, so it's pretty loose, but it's gonna hold it in place for me. You can see the spacer in there doing its job. It's probably got less than a 1/16 of an inch of play, maybe about a 1/16 of an inch. So when I tighten this down, we'll see if this bends or not. I don't want to over tighten it because I think I'm on a bearing. I'll have to take this apart again. This isn't final assembly anyways. Take this apart again and take a look. I might have to make a new spacer that doesn't have that 1/16 inch play, or throw a little bit of weld on the end of that or something. I don't know. Or maybe I can just hammer on this bracket to bend it in a 1/16 of an inch. I just don't want to put too much torque on this bolt to where I'm affecting the bearing in there. Anyways, that's it hanging. This is it in place. Okay, so the question is, do I want to put it up on an angle like this? Or do I want my mount to just come straight out the back of this tie rod so it's kind of in the same plane as everything? I think I want it in the same plane as the tie rod. And then I gotta hope that I don't hit my diff cover. You know, there's only an 1.5 there. So when this is turned all the way driver or all the way passenger, how close am I gonna get? In fact, I'm starting to think this isn't gonna work. I'm starting to think I'm gonna hit it right there, driver passenger. I might have to go up one hole, but the problem is the bottom of that, I can't remember what you call these joint ends here, but the end of that is poking down through that hole. Thinking. Maybe I go back to putting this inside. But then no, that's not gonna work either. It would be perfect if it was up on that hole right there. But that hits, so that's not gonna work. I could make another hole. I don't need a whole lot. I need maybe 3/4 of an inch higher. I could put another hole kind of to the right over here. 3/4 of an inch higher so that the tie rod doesn't hit. What I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna get this secured with some wire, baling wire, and then turn this lock to lock and see what happens. Well, there it is, held up by wire. Looks great. I don't have someone to turn the wheel for me, so I'm just gonna do a little at a time. I guess I'll show you as I go, but I'm pretty sure this is gonna hit. I mean, this is on, I can't even fit my finger through there. So yeah, that wasn't bad. That wasn't a good plan, I guess. I think I'm gonna have to drill a new hole, and maybe I think let's drill a new hole up higher, and go from there. But we'll do this turn real quick just to make sure. Okay, so I'm hitting my jack stand, so I can't turn all the way, but this is pretty close to, you can see where the lock would hit there, the stop, but this is turned left quite a bit. Not quite, maybe a little bit more than halfway. Anyways, I can just tell, so this is gonna move with the tie rod. It'll be secured to the tie rod. So I'm not worried about tie rod hitting here. Tie rod hitting here is a concern, and then through shaft hitting on the diff is a concern, and then damper, extra reservoir, all that hitting up here or here is a concern. So that's kind of what I'm working through right now. I'm trying to figure out how to get this to fit in here in a way that it will not hit any of those, despite, like, no matter where it is in the cycle. So what I'm thinking is I need to raise up, put a new hole that's about here. Should still be strong enough. Not very much torque goes on this. And this is welded in here, and it's boxed in at the bottom. I think this will be fine. My spacer will firm it up. So I'm gonna drill a new hole that'll be able to, so that I'll be able to mount this up above the tie rod. So we'll kind of start here, and I'll come at an angle out and go just right directly above the tie rod, so that when we're at full lock turned driver, and this is that way as far as it'll go, we won't be hitting the diff. The concern is going to be drag link. So as long as I'm not hitting the drag link, I'll be okay. So I think I want to get it up on top mostly. So kind of like right here. All right, drill a new hole. Let's go from there. So I think I've just discovered a problem with my plan. Here's the new hole drilled. Well, I mean, you can't see the hole because it's installed on the hole, but old holes, new installation location, you can figure out what hole is. Okay. I mean, it's exactly where I want it. Just above, I could build a mount that just goes, boom, connects this here. The problem I'm realizing is as these wheels turn left and right, this tie rod moves in and out, like backward and forward a little bit, you know, like maybe a half inch to an inch, which means that this end of the steering stabilizer will be moving in that same plane, forward and backward, but this end will not be moving forward and backward. And I'm realizing that this is designed to, I think, take some rotation in this bushing, which means I need this bushing to be facing down or up. And that's the plane that it can rotate in. And same with this one. This bolt needs to go down through the top or up from the bottom. And so I think I have this, my plan is to secure it in the wrong way on both ends, which is not great. Okay. Yep, I'm pretty sure I was doing it all wrong. So now my plan, completely different. I'm gonna use this piece of 3/8 steel and build a little box, basically, that I could put a bolt down through the top and secure the one end of the steering stabilizer. My mount on this side will be similar, but I've got to have the mounting point on the steering stabilizer either facing up like that or the opposite 180 facing down, so that it can rotate on this as that tie rod gets closer and further from the axle. So I'm thinking this orientation is what I'm going to go for, or actually probably this one, if I can get it to fit. That's quite a bit of space above the axle. That means this whole thing's going to be an inch above the axle, versus if I do like a wraparound mount that kind of comes off the top, wraps around and attaches to the axle this way, then the whole thing could get a lot closer. So we'll see. I'm gonna build that box first, and make the decision later on which type of mount to do for the right end, but let's get going. All right, got some redneck engineering going on here, but it's my cardboard design here. It's gonna fit right in there. I'll weld these ears just between holes. So the hole that the bolt is in, I'm gonna weld it between the bolt and the next hole for the top one, and then the bottom one is actually gonna go right over this other hole. Whoops, right over this other hole. Anyways, you can't see it, but that's fine. And then on this side, over here, I'm actually gonna turn that mount facing the other way. It's really hard to do with the camera in your hand, but I'm gonna have this sitting here with the mount facing straight up like that. Where's my foot? Anyways, have the steering stabilizer centered right over the tie rod and have sort of a box built that it slides into and then mounts to. So we'll get to there. So I decided on roughly 2" by 2" squares here with the hole drilled not quite centered. I've got the back edges ground down just to allow my weld to penetrate a little bit better. So those two are not perfect squares, I know, but they're gonna be just fine. Okay, got these two tabs tacked on. It's a pretty tight fit to get this in there because I had it bolted together when I tacked it on, and it's a pretty tight fit. So I'm kind of worried about boxing this in, but I'm going to anyways. And I guess worst case scenario, I'll have to take a little grinder in here and just take a little off if I have to, or maybe I can just do it to this spacer, make this spacer smaller if I have to. I'm gonna go ahead and box this in. I'm gonna measure the piece. Let me think. Actually, I think I'll burn these in before yeah, that way I can get to it easier. So I'll burn these two in, and then I'll box it in on the back and go from there. All right, that is some really ugly welding, but it's burned in and it'll do. And so I think I'm running out of time today, so I might finish the rest tomorrow. But yep, see you then. Future videos, I'm gonna install this. This is an inline power steering stabilizer filter because I do have some metal shavings in my power steering fluid. Let's not talk about that right now. Another future video. I'm trying to convince you guys to subscribe so you can see me do this stuff. This is a slip yoke eliminator kit from Tom Woods for my transfer case. So I'll be doing that soon. I also just ordered a rebuild kit for the transfer case. So all the seals, bearings, gaskets, etc. I'll be doing that at the same time, as well as I ordered some new shift linkage, a cable style shift linkage for that. So all of that will be going on soon. So stay tuned for those videos. What about this? I think this is gonna work just fine. These 2 points along this bolt reduces the torque that's gonna be on it. And look at that. And that's really sturdy. I haven't even tightened this down and it's already sturdy. And it puts my shock right in this range. That's with it loose, moving a little bit. But when I tighten that down, it's gonna be right in this range. So I can build myself a little mount that just welds onto that. And then I can bolt this in place and we're good to go. So I think I'm just gonna run with that. I like that, that's clean. So downsides, this is high, right? It's not as close to this, so it's up in the way of this stuff. I think what I'm gonna do is run with this. I'll tack on my mount and then I'm gonna cycle the suspension and just see where we're at. And if it's not worth, if it's messing up this drag link so much that I'm gonna have to bend it, whereas I wouldn't have to otherwise, then I might go back to putting it in here and do a wraparound mount on this side. I just really don't want to do that. I don't know why I don't want to do that. Something about it just doesn't sound fun. But we're gonna see how this goes, I guess. All right, that's that. So here's one option. Notice that this is set back. Back there. It's not straight over the axle, or it's not straight over the, what do you call this? Tie rod. Set back a little bit. I might go with that. You can see I'm not gonna hit my diff cover because I'm just to the left of it from my vantage point. This guy, I think, is gonna be fine. It's high enough that even if it does go far back, it shouldn't hit it. But my clearance here with the drag link is not great. Let's see if I can get you. It's close. And also, it's gonna be hard to get my, what do you call this? Track bar, bolt and stuff. So that is one option. I'll stick this piece of cardboard on the side, and I'm gonna try something else real quick. So I don't know why, but it seemed like a bad idea to have this kind of back behind the tie rod, but now I'm thinking it's gonna be just fine. I got this is the part of the bracket that came with this steering stabilizer. I cut it up, brushed it off. If I just weld it as a tab back here, I'm gonna need to shorten it a little bit, get rid of some of that extra metal there between the tie rod and the steering stabilizer, so it's closer to the tie rod, but I think I'm gonna have clearance just fine on my diff cover and on my track bar and on my drag link. So I think I'm gonna go with this, and it just looks better right there. I think I'm just gonna cut that extra meat off of this here, weld it on, put sort of a piece to strengthen it up here, like a gusset almost, and I think that'll be it. All right. Got the Jeep off of jack stands so I could get the wheels turned all the way. When I'm all the way out to lock on towards passenger, I was hitting this bracket just a little bit. So I went ahead and trimmed that, as you can see. There's that. So this is all the way passenger. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get that steering stabilizer mount, the tie rod mount, tacked in place, turned all the way passenger, and see where the shock ends up in relation to the pumpkin when I'm turned all the way driver, because I'm a little worried about that. So we're gonna see what that looks like. Okay, after all the BS, this is what I landed on. This is only tacked in place right now. But this guy and these two tabs. Now I do need to trim this bottom one a little bit more, just a little bit more. And I might need to build up my stop over here a little bit. We will see. It's time to kind of finish this up. So I'm gonna finish weld this. I'm going to trim all this excess off over here that I don't need, kind of round these corners a little bit. I'm actually gonna trim a little bit off here just because this hits a little bit, just barely touches right there. I'd rather it didn't, so I'm gonna trim this. I'm gonna shave a little bit off of this so it's easier to install this, because right now it's an extremely tight fit. It's really hard to get it in there. So I'll shave this down a little bit, use a wire wheel and clean everything up, paint it, and we'll go from there. All right. Yeah, I'm not a very good welder, but there you go. It's on. It's been welded. You can see there's a gusset back there. Maybe you can see it. I can't see what you're seeing, but I think you're seeing a gusset back there. Welded all around. I'm just gonna go, I trimmed this some extra and shaved a little bit off of this surface so that it slides in easier. I decided I'm not going to pretty up everything right now, because in the near future I'll be completely taking this axle out from under the Jeep and doing a bunch of work to it, painting it. So I will do it at that point. It'll be much easier. So for now, I'm just gonna do a quick brushing, prep for some paint. I'm gonna throw some paint on there, and then we'll get the steering stabilizer installed. All right, check this out. It's installed. Oh. Looks pretty good, I think. You can see I just sprayed some black paint on the stuff that I was working on. Anyways, okay, I thought I was gonna have to do some more clearance down here. I don't have to. This is touching. You can see right there, it's touching. And right here, it's not. So, we're just barely clearing that bolt. And, you know, worst case scenario, I could just you know, round the corners on all the top ends and all that or whatever. But I think we're gonna be good. So I'm gonna try and set this phone up on a tripod so you can see it when I turn back and forth, and I'll do that right now. All right, here we go. All right, well, time for me to go give it a test drive, see how it drives.